Right now, from KTAB News, your local election headquarters, this is Big Country Politics.
Thanks for being here for Big Country Politics. I'm Travis Reese. On today's show, we hear from who will soon represent Abilene in the Texas State Senate. That's Senator Charles Perry. But first, we're joined in studio by Texas Land Commissioner George P. Bush. Commissioner Bush, now a candidate for the Attorney General of Texas. Commissioner, thanks so much for being here today.
Great to be with you.
All right, let's go ahead and start with this headline. I want to touch on this big headline from your office, that being the signing of a lease agreement between the General Land Office and the Texas Department of Public Safety. That lease agreement authorizing the construction of border wall along state-owned land. I want to know how you think this will help the immigration crisis at the border.
Well, I thank you so much for welcoming me and having a chance to visit with your viewers in the Big Country, because this is an issue that not only faces Texas, but our entire country. And so knowing that this administration would not complete the construction of border wall at the state agency, I manage the General Land Office. I've worked with the Governor's Office and the Texas Department of Public Safety to ensure protecting our fellow Texans. That's my #1 job as Land Commissioner. So we began procuring and finding contractors that can help construct wall, and in my capacity, in my executive capacity as Land Commissioner, have endowed acreage to help the construction to connect two areas that connect the Trump Wall and the W Wall in one of the highly trafficked corridors of Rio Grande City, just outside of Rio Grande City in Stark County. So it's one step of a long process to ensure that we're protecting our fellow Texans.
All right. And another big headline in recent weeks, President Biden announcing release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. What does that mean for us here in Texas, and what does that mean for us right here in the Big Country?
Well, my belief is that the president shouldn't make releases from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help his polling numbers. The right approach to increasing supply is to get on the phone and call with producers here in West Texas, the Permian Basin, the Eagle Ford Shale, and South Texas, and say, look, let's create more jobs in our country. Let's enhance American production rather than depending on Saudis and Russians to determine our oil and gas production. So this is a pro-Texas policy. This would be a pro-American policy. Disappointed that we're making these releases just to alleviate his polling numbers. Not that he's calling me for my advice, but if he were to, I would say that Texas can lead the way and help solve this problem.
And I mean, gas prices obviously have risen in the last year or so. So, is there an answer to that?
Totally. So it would be having a policy that promotes production and promotes refining additional petroleum products so that we can increase our supply. The reason why gasoline is priced the way as it is, it's simply a supply and demand issue. We have way too much demand for too little supply. And it's because this president has punished the oil and gas industry. We need a different position that basically says that American producers, American jobs, American companies should help to lower that price. And we do that by encouraging more production rather than coming up with small measures such as releasing from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
Okay, so you're here in Abilene, and you got to spend some time at ACU with the young Republicans there. What did that mean, and what did you come away from there thinking?
Boy, I was impressed with the bright, impressive students of ACU that are fighting for Texas conservative values. It's really hard being a young conservative. In many college campuses nowadays, you are ostracized, sometimes you're protested, and we spent a lot of time talking about our experiences on campus, but encourage them that as Attorney General, I want to have their back, I want to fight for their values, and also pandered by wearing my purple tie here in the Big Country to students at ACU, reminding them that they had a big victory over University of Texas, but my friends in Austin may not think too highly of that.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes this basketball season, right? All right, speaking about your bid for Attorney General, you're challenging who the current Attorney General is, Ken Paxton, in that March primary, and you've talked about securing borders as your #1 priority. What else can you do to help secure the border?
Well, we also have to deal with the consequences of having an open and porous border, and that's the spike in violent crime that we've seen across the great state of Texas, in addition to a spike in human trafficking. The current occupant has convicted approximately 0 traffickers in 8 years of service as Attorney General. I will change that. That will be a priority. Well, I will be working with county DAs, including yours in Taylor County, to make sure that we're filling in the gaps and backing the thin blue line or law enforcement officials that are under attack. And so I will make that as a priority as Attorney General, to not only work with border communities to backstop county DAs that are absolutely overwhelmed with state trespassing violations on farmers and ranchers' lands in vast areas of South Texas. But I'm going to work in urban, rural, suburban areas of Texas with county DAs to make sure that we restore law and order, but most importantly, integrity. Our top lawyer is a crook. He's facing 99 years of criminal sentencing, 3 felony charges. That's before his FBI investigation in Austin, Texas. We need better. Texas deserves the best.
And so you said before that if Paxton were to get the Republican nomination again, a Democrat might win.
Absolutely, a Democrat will win. That's because he was the lowest vote getter 4 years ago when Beto ran for U.S. Senate against Ted Cruz. Beto's running again as the Democrat governor, and he's creating a lot of energy and buzz in the Democratic Party. And Ken Paxton will lose because he's facing bribery, corruption, abusive office charges, and not to mention adultery, which he hasn't denied. So all to say that he is not the best player on this football team. I'm ready to start this job on day one. I'm ready to be the nominee and ready to fight for Texas values.
I want to also talk about COVID-19. Paxton also, obviously filing a lot of lawsuits. What's your plan for, I guess, defending Texas?
So I would continue litigation that results in these unmitigated measures that are impacting healthcare industries and also businesses of over 100 employees. I've talked to healthcare administrators alike. At the General Land Office, we manage 9 healthcare facilities for veterans, including 1 location in Big Spring, Texas, where they tell me that their nurses will walk the job if they are forced to take vaccine shots. So this is something that Texas healthcare facilities are planning for, but it's becoming more challenging to prepare for. So as AG, we need to not only file those suits, but actually win. And that's where Ken has been sleeping on the job because of his own criminal issues. He hasn't won these big cases, and I will.
About 4 months left in the campaign. How are you feeling?
We're just getting started. We've got 600 volunteers working throughout the state of Texas, phone banking, block walking. We think we picked up a few volunteers at ACU earlier today. I intend to run a grassroots campaign in all parts of this state. You won't find any of my opponents west of 35 or west of the Capitol. I'm proud to have West Texas roots with my Uncle George, my grandfather searching for black gold in the Permian Basin, many friends in Abilene, and many supporters that I look forward to visiting with on this trip. But this won't be my last visit. I hope to be a partner to serve as the next Attorney General.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us here, Commissioner Bush. We appreciate you being here.
Great to be with you.
All right. BCP continues with Victor Sotelo right after this.
Big Country Politics on KTAB continues.
All right, and welcome back to BCP. Right now we're joined with our special guest, State Senator Charles Perry. He is the State Senator for District 28, soon to include Abilene. Senator Perry, welcome.
Welcome to you guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Abilene is no strange place for you, right?
No, it's not. I grew up in Sweetwater, graduated out of Sweetwater in 1980, but I was here every 2 weeks growing up. I had grandparents were here, but because of finding family dynamics being what they were, I spent every 2 weeks in Abilene, Texas, pretty much growing up. So lots of great memories, lots of fond memories, and the good news is Abilene's doing what it needs to be Abilene and continues to have those growth and things, but the people didn't change. Everybody I've met feels just like when I walked out back in 1980 to go to Lubbock, Texas for Texas Tech University. So it's good to be home.
Yeah, you got to love that. Talk to me about the redistricting and the process that we went through and how we moved from Senate District 24 to 28 now.
Sure. So every 10 years, by Constitution at the federal level, we have to redo census. Census is determined, surely a math issue. You take in the Texas Senate, there's 31 of us. You take the total census population, divide it out by 31 people. That is the number of people that you will serve. And in that, you have to build a district around that number. So roughly 910, 20,000 people, I think, is what the new numbers showed up to be. In that, we look at the counties and we look at this Voting Rights Act and we go through all those processes and hearings and we develop district boundaries. So Senate District 28 already had northern side of Abilene, and because of the urban growth in the East Texas area, the 24th seat was able to move a little further south and east. West Texas needed more population. I was 144,000 people short, so I picked up the lion's share of that shortfall taking out Taylor County totally, and it picked up Wichita Falls and Wichita County, part of those. So it's just a building of the numbers. You got the math, and then you just start working towards meeting that goal of representing that number.
And I've heard a lot of people say it kind of just made a little bit more sense, because before Senate District 24, we had Dr. Don Buckingham, who represented also Travis County, and so really kind of different kind of areas to.
Yeah. The theory behind the redistricting, if you can do it, is keep economic interests, keep values together. So economic interest, Lubbock and South Plains and all those areas, those 51 counties I currently serve, are ag-centric. A little bit of oil and gas in there, but rural values for sure. And so Abilene just kind of melds into that pretty well. So we have a lot of diversity in Abilene economy. Actually, you got the university systems, just like my district, Midwest and Texas Tech, San Angelo, those districts. So it really just makes sense that if you can keep the economic industry and the values of that community contingent, and it's hard to argue that maybe the northern part of Travis County's values would be similar to Taylor County's values. So when you can do it, if the numbers justify it and you can work that in, it's good to bring communities of interest together on so many levels, and that's what we did, I think.
Very good. And so when does this actually take effect, the new Senate
So
lines?
honestly, I've got to be sworn in January of 23 to officially, now in November of 22, when the votes are tallied, and after primaries of 22 in March, then officially that becomes your district, right? But you can't really swear in as a senator until January of 23. But basically, unless some unforeseen court action, and it's currently being challenged, but I'll just give you an example. The map I've ran in under the last 12 years, pretty much, since the last redistricting, wasn't approved for 8 or 9 years. So this is not new. This is expected, so it'll be in a court system for a while. So I'm Abilene Senator going forward for all practical purposes.
All but official, if you will, right?
But official. Unofficially, I'm that guy. And so Dawn will finish out whatever she needs to do, but if, people know, and my staff will be responding to this if that transfer has occurred. And in my prior district, the 51 counties, I'm still their guy. So I'm a senator in Texas. Bottom line, I got 30 million people, and if there's something I can do to help that process, I'm going to be that guy.
Before we talk about going forward, let's talk about this last legislative session. Your thoughts on that? What were you able to accomplish, and maybe some things that weren't fully accomplished?
Yeah, so we started with COVID and didn't know what that looked like. We ended up really, in hindsight, it's going to look just like any other session. We got a lot of stuff done. We got the stuff that was required to do, the budget and some other things done. We had Winter Storm Uri hit in the middle of that was unexpected, that truly set us back on our heels to try to accommodate some of the challenges that one produced. But in hindsight, it was probably one of the most productive sessions that I've been involved in as far as budget goes, because we thought we were going to have the doom and gloom of a budget shortfall. We ended up being okay on the budget, so the math worked out on the numbers for budget purposes, and then we funded the priorities, and we actually moved on so many levels on the culture war issues, the heartbeat bill, Second Amendment, and then you throw in a budget that ended up meeting the test of the need. We were very, very productive coming out. It's so sad that it took 3 special sessions, but we had a lot of work to do, and Uri and COVID and some of those other things just kind of exasperated the process, but we hung in there in the process to get the things done that we needed to do.
Talking about Uri, let's talk about ERCOT and the power grid issue. Have we fixed that?
I tell you, we did some governance reform that needed. We did some weatherization stuff that we thought we had gotten done in 11. Truly, we did not get it done. So we did the basics, if you will, but I still believe that we need to go further down the road of more power. I think we're still a little bit deficient on meeting the growing needs of a Texas economy as we put more demand on a grid system, i.e. electric vehicles, and wherever those conversations end up being. We're not accommodating additional thermal capacity, and when I say thermal capacity, we've got a great balance of renewable and thermal in the grid system. We don't want to get one heavy over the other, and we saw some of the shortfalls of sometimes renewables don't work when the wind's not blowing or the sun's not shining. We had some fallout from that. So in my observation, we probably still have some work to do on generating new capacity, and I think we need to go back and have that conversation and do that analogy that it takes. And we have a financial model there that needs some reforms, and we need to have a thermal generator conversation as what thermal general conversation, such as natural gas, or is there a better source of power? But we can't have one or the other all the way. the balance that we strike. But we're not, in my opinion, we're not where we need to be as far as capacity today.
And then that'll still be something you guys continue to work on.
I think so. I think we set up the parameters for the PUC to move forward on, and in that process we're expecting some kind of a report back to us as a legislature that we're good, we're not good, or we're within X number of gigawatts of power that we should be in order to shore up some of the deficits when we have those severe events. We remind people the grid worked as it was designed. It probably was not designed to have a 123-year event in 254 counties that lasted as long as it did. So I'm not upset with the way that it performed, but I think it did highlight opportunities to go in and do some transformational changes that need to be made to address, I think, the growing state that we are, the industry growth that we expect, and people that are coming in plugging more things into the grid every day.
All right, very good. We're going to continue our conversation with Senator Perry in just 2 minutes.
Big Country Politics on KTAB continues.
All right, still joined here with Senator Charles Perry, Abilene's new state senator as part of Senate District 28. I want to talk about the committees that you are on, and you're the chair of the Water Committee, right?
Chair of Water, Rural, and Ag Affairs,
Okay.
so anything that's water or rural or ag, and you know, it makes sense when you have 51 counties with 38 of them under 10,000 population. So I love serving that constituency. Water is my deal, water supply. And what does that look like for the future? Because we can go without electricity for a while. We can go without oil and gas. It's not comfortable, but 3 days without water, I'm told, you pretty much start on the dying end of the side of life. So water is a issue that I'm not sure that nationally, statewide, or other, we're having an urgency conversation that we need to be developing new water supplies. We could serve. We're good stewards of what we have, but at the end of the day, we got to find new sources. And I've spent my 6 years as water chair working towards those conversations, and currently there's a bill with oversight at Texas Tech out of the produced water area, the Permian Basin, oil and gas. So, you know, I'm trying to practice what I preach, that we need to start developing new water supplies.
People, I think, often don't realize how important water is because it's here right now, but we need to sustain it for the next generation and generations after that, right?
That's correct. So if you don't have a fairly consistent source and an ability to predict water source going forward, industry doesn't want to be here. And if you don't have that actual source, then life won't exist. So water is the one thing we can't ignore, and I'm not sure nationally or statewide or community levels are having those conversations. It turns on at the tap, people think we're good.
Yeah.
And we need to change that narrative to developing new supplies. We are a wealthy enough nation, a wealthy enough state, to not ignore the reality that 20, 30, 40, 50 years out, there are areas of this state that will literally have very few water options, that if we don't start working on those today, then they're going to be in trouble.
Okay. In addition to water, what are some other priorities that you have going forward?
Well, I like to work on health and human services. That's a very rewarding area. I work with medically fragile kids, and we continue to tweak and try to make their worlds a little better. So those are fun things that I enjoy doing. There's not an area in the budget that I don't enjoy. I'm on Finance Committee. I like the numbers. I like the
enjoy
challenges.
budget. What? Yeah.
I like the challenges of making all the numbers fit the needs to the best we can. At the same time, transportation is critical to a district this side. We got a lot of road miles. We don't get a lot of new roads, but we got to keep the ones we got. And to TxDOT's credit, they do a pretty good job out in these areas. We have pretty good roads.
And I-27 and I-14 going through part of your district too.
I-27 is right out of the heart of Lubbock, right? It comes up through Amarillo and it's going to, that's the world's largest import. That region that we're trying to connect to from Mexico
Ports to plains.
Is unbelievable. The agriculture / commerce that can come from making that connection happen up through Canada. And so we owe it to ourselves to do those things. And it takes years to get a road in place, but we are further along on the I-27 project than we ever had, and 14 is actually ahead of 27. It's worked through at the federal level on some designations that need to be done. We've got a path, we've got studies going, so maybe I won't drive on it, but my kids or grandkids may get the opportunity to actually work up and down that commerce. Great people, great people.
Very good. So transportation, obviously, in I-20 through Abilene, and
Yeah.
that's a hot issue as well. You can go online and fill out a survey about the widening project too.
And some of that's federal. You know,
Yeah.
that's one thing that TxDOT or transportation in general. You got local MPOs, you've got state, you've got feds, you've got all these different jurisdictions working in the similar road beds and different where they stop and start. So it can get a little convoluted and a little complicated. Most of that interstate system obviously is federal because it interconnects with states. But at the same time, we have a role in that as a state, making sure that what we do on those interstates all connect properly to the state highway system.
Talk to me about your work with the House side, and so we've got State Rep Stan Lambert here.
Yep.
So you're going to be working with him now.
Yeah, I had 13 reps, House reps, and I think 3 or 4 federal reps in my current district. So I have to work with those guys. I have been fortunate that the House reps that I have in my district, that we work in tandem for the benefit of rural and West Texas specifically. We have a great partnership, a great working relationship, an open door policy. Senate has a little bit bigger budget for really detailed staff-oriented specific subject matter, where the House doesn't have quite that budget. So we end up being a great resource for my House representatives that are working in the same district for the same purposes, that we can lend support and then pass bills back and forth and carry their water, so to speak. So great relationship. I'm fortunate to have 2 reps out of Lubbock, both significant leadership roles through the House side, and it's just nice to have that partnership going across where you know what you send over has got a chance of getting to the end.
Great. I want to talk about this as we go to break here in a second, but what are you doing? What can the average citizen out there who may be having a problem with, a state agency, what can they do to contact your office?
So the first phone call they make, if they're stuck in a state agency bureaucracy and they don't think they're getting a fair shake, or if they think they're stalled for whatever reason, the first call they make is Senator Perry's office, our Stan Lambert's office. I mean, I'm not trying to take that role away, but one of those 2 calls, or both, and if it requires both of us to engage, we usually do contact and say, "Hey, Stan, this is in the district, we're working on it, do you know anything?" So we coordinate that pretty well. But our role as a legislature and constituent services is to make sure that the government that we, quote, have created is a resource first, enforcement sometimes, and a visionary hopefully in making sure all the infrastructures work right. So we can help in those issues to get it moving. Now, the answer maybe not be something that individual likes, but there's no reason to flounder in the system. We'll find you an answer, and if it's in accordance with statute, we'll get you moving. If it's contrary to statute, it may be there for a reason that you can't really pour bleach down the pipes. I mean, I don't know what the issue is, but definitely call the Senate office to start out with.
So you don't just work a few months every 2 years?
It's a $600 a month job. It's a part-time job, right? So I came home probably, all less of a day a week for 10 months, and then it consumes about a week a month during the, quote, slow time, interims, and the closer we get to 23, it works. And not to mention we got campaign to go in the middle of that. So it's a full-time job, but it's a privilege to serve. It's a fun fight. I love fighting for the West Texas / South Plains / big country value systems that we all hold dear, that have seemed to be an endangered species on some level in the political world. So I'm privileged to get to do it, and it's a fun fight still.
Senator Perry, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Look forward to many more conversations.
We will have some.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
BCP continues right after this.
Big Country Politics on KTAB continues.
And our thanks to Senator Perry and Commissioner Bush for joining us on the show today. That does it for this edition of Big Country Politics. For all the latest news, you can always go to bigcountryhomepage.com. That's it for now. We'll see you next week, same time, same place.